What is up, guys? Frosty here with another Frosty Features. Last Friday, we had an announcement that we were finally getting Gambit in Marvel Strike Force. We also are getting, along with Gambit, it was announced that Phantom X and Dazzler were coming to the game. So, today we're going to talk about Gambit. So what we do with Frosty Features, it is a comic book background, just kind of a little bit more story for the character that you're about to get in Marvel Strike Force. I am an avid comic book reader, so I have a little bit of knowledge base and I do a little bit of extra research so that I can tell y'all who you're playing with. Because it's always good to know who you play with, y'all. So yeah, this will be on YouTube. I also stream on Twitch. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but for right now, let's get into Gambit. Gambit! So, Gambit's a mutant. His actual name is Remy LeBeau. He was abandoned as a child because of his red eyes, and he was adopted by Jean-Luc LeBeau, who raised him to become a thief, and Gambit in the Marvel Universe is one of the most accomplished thieves. First appearance in X-Men Annual number 14 at 1990. This was simply a cameo. He appeared a few issues later in earnest. Powers and abilities. So most people see some of these powers and abilities and they're like, oh, he makes cards flash and that's cool. What his actual power is molecular acceleration. So what he does is he takes the potential energy in any given object and he converts it into kinetic energy, which gives him the ability to, he can strengthen, weaken objects, or he can push them in such a way that they can blow up. He can also reverse it and make them fall apart. So you'll see him, his attacks are the explosions, his defense is touching things and making it, essentially making them kind of degrade in front of him. So it's pretty cool. So that's his mutant ability. Gambit's actually the first mutant I've done on Frosty Features, so that's pretty exciting, I believe. Yeah, we're going to stick with that. Aliases, Mr. X, Swamp Rat, and Death. He's also referred to a few times in the comics as the Raging Cajun, and what is the... Bayou Boy, things like that. Pretty much anything that references his Cajun heritage there. So those are other names he typically goes by, but 9 times out of 10, it's Gambit. Affiliations. He works with the X-Men, Thieves Guild, Excalibur, Four Horsemen, and the Marauders. So for those of you who aren't aware, a big event in Marvel Strike Force right now is the Apocalypse event and the introduction of the Four Horsemen. Gambit was a part of the Four Horsemen at one time, and it actually had some pretty big ramifications on his life as a whole, and we're going to talk about that. He also had his time with the Marauders, who's also an MSF team, and a lot of people have been expecting Excalibur's arrival to MSF. So a potential team maybe later. Currently, he's a part of this Unlimited X-Men team. Unlimited X-Men is an X-Men comic book line, but it is not like a canon team in the comics. So that is a team that they're making up, which is kind of a breath of fresh air from my point of view. Background, he's Cajun, he's from New Orleans, Louisiana in the United States of America. Typically if Gambit's backstory comes up or some sort of canon arc happens about Gambit, he ends up back in New Orleans. Right? So Gambit's been around for a long time, became extremely popular as of the 90s run of the X-Men. In the 90s, for those of you who don't know, X-Men is one of the most famous Marvel properties of all time, especially as far as comics are concerned. And in the 90s, you really couldn't get anything bigger than the X-Men as far as comics went. So this is actually when we see Gambit rise to stardom, more or less. And obviously he was introduced in 1990, so that also sort of lends to itself. Who died? A lot of people. I like to talk about a lot. Most heroes, somebody dies to kind of make that hero who they are. Gambit's been around since 1990, which is, 30 years ago. He's had an awful lot of people die to kind of mold him into who he is. Gambit also is the unfortunate fool who has a lot of people he thinks die, and then he'll leave the situation and they come back. Specifically, his ex-wife, Belladonna. We'll be talking about her an awful lot going through here. And starting off with that, ex-wife's bad touch. Assassin to ass in hospital bed. So, Remy LeBeau, Gambit, he is well known for his work in the Thieves Guild. As I said before, he's a master thief. He's probably one of the best thieves in the Marvel Universe. He had an arranged marriage with Belladonna, and Belladonna was the leader of the Assassins Guild. So there was a situation where she was thought to be dead. There's a few, this actually, I believe this happened 3 times canonically in comics, where, Gambit goes back to New Orleans to find Belladonna because previously she was thought dead, and then things happened. So the first time that she was thought dead, Gambit went back and found out she wasn't, and then she, quote-unquote, dies again or whatever. That's when Gambit and Rogue started. Gambit and Rogue famously have like this sort of on and off relationship. They really into each other. Rogue has the problem where she can't touch people. But anyway, thinking that Belladonna's in a coma and Rogue touches her. So Rogue does not, fun fact, Rogue does not just absorb people's powers. Rogue also absorbs their memories, right? So a big thing with Rogue that she deals with is that psychological impact. So we're talking about Rogue for a second. So when you see Rogue that can fly and stuff, she actually absorbs and accidentally kills Captain Marvel, right? So she has a lot of those memories and stuff, and it affects her personality. So while Belladonna's in this coma, Rogue touches her, bad touch, and absorbs her memories. So she, as somebody who is madly in love with Gambit, is also mixed up with these personality traits and memories of Belladonna, who also had a thing with Gambit, which is one of the reasons why they're on and off again, is because Rogue could not divide whether it was her feelings or Belladonna's that she was feeling towards Gambit. So fun little love fact between Rogue and Gambit. That's sort of what's behind their relationship. Cats. Figaro, Lucifer, and Figaro. That was a mistake. It's Figaro, Lucifer, and Oliver. Mystique gave, this is just a random fun fact, Mystique gave Gambit some cats, and he named them all after cats from Disney movies. So it's Figaro, Lucifer, and Oliver. That infographic is incorrect. Figaro, Lucifer, and Oliver. Seeing Double, a clone of a cloner. So this is just another fun fact I thought you might find interesting, because once again, I feel like a lot of people actually know who Gambit is. He's, you know, especially from when I was a kid, he was on a similar kill to Wolverine. Everybody kind of knew who he was. Something you might not know about Gambit, he actually was originally, when he was first being written, he was supposed to be a clone of Mr. Sinister. So you'll find, and we'll talk about it in a bit, a lot of Gambit's backstory deals with Mr. Sinister. Originally, he was supposed to be a clone of Mr. Sinister that becomes a good guy. So instead, he ends up being this sort of rogue thief who works for Mr. Sinister, who becomes a good guy. But he was actually supposed to be another version of Mr. Sinister. All right, so relationships. Jean-Luc Lebeau is his adopted father. We talked about earlier. He adopted him off the streets, called him his own, taught him the ways of thievery, and introduced him to the Thieves Guild. We talked heavily about Rogue. It's his on and off lover. So, Belladonna Beauredoux, that is the head of the Assassin's Guild, his ex-wife, and Anna Marie Lebeau is his wife. I like to put that separate because it just sounds like some totally random person, but Anna Marie Lebeau is actually just Rogue. So he actually does get married to Rogue eventually. She is forced, her powers keep growing, she's forced to learn to control them so she can actually kind of have that physical relationship, and they do end up getting married. Spoilers. Notable events, ties to Mr. Sinister. As a member of the Thieves Guild, he found himself in the path of Mr. Sinister, and he always seems to go back to that. And once again, it's probably because of his intentioned goal as being written. So he started out actually working for Mr. Sinister as a thief, and as an assassin, he was sent to kill the Morlocks, which we hear an awful lot about in X-Men, but they really haven't shown up in MSF. Here's looking at you, MSF. We're looking for Marrow. But so in killing a bunch of Morlocks, and inevitably with Morlocks and thievery, he runs into a altered Storm. Storm gets changed back into a kid, and when she was a kid, she stole to survive, so she kind of reverted back to that. That's how Gambit met Storm, and then after Storm became an adult again, she vied for him. He kind of went back against Mr. Sinister, and then Storm vied for him. This was kind of referenced in the blog post. for the X-Men, and that's how Gambit actually eventually gets into the X-Men proper. So Gambit as a Four Horseman, first off, he looks badass as hell. Gambit was a little cocky, and that's kind of Gambit's thing. He's kind of a cocky dude. That's sort of part of his charm. He's a charming individual, loves to play poker, kind of whatever. He thinks he's holding the right cards. And so on one of Apocalypse's returns to, you know, fight the X-Men, come back around or whatever, Gambit decides, he believes at first that Apocalypse's intentions are different, and he goes to sort of investigate the situation. And after speaking to Apocalypse, he's not 100% sure if he believes him, but Apocalypse offers him the role of Death, and Remy accepts it because he thinks that he had the mental fortitude or whatever to not kind of succumb to Apocalypse's demands, not to fall into it. He could just be an inside man for the X-Men. And turns out he was wrong. He was not able to do so, and he became a Four Horseman proper. And becoming a Four Horseman obviously makes you much stronger and what have you. And since then, Gambit sometimes, when he fights, a big weakness of his is fighting telepaths, but because he represses his death personality after the Horsemen end in that kind of arc, and so in fighting telepaths, sometimes telepaths will bring out Gambit's death persona. So he was a Horseman, and now on occasion the Horseman will come back and cause havoc depending on who he fights. It doesn't even have to be a strong it doesn't have to be somebody on the level of Professor X. It can legitimately just be anybody, as long as they have a moderate, like low-key telepathic ability. They have the ability to bring out this death persona, so you have to be really careful around Gambit. So yeah, those are just some cool things about Gambit. Now we're going to talk about power level. So the way that I judge power level, this is sort of my scale. On the top, we've got a multiversal threat. A multiversal threat can end a reality as we know it in all universes. So they can warp everything to their whim, be it one universe, another universe. There's only a few chosen that are at such a level. Universal, they could probably end that universe. They can end existence as we know it, but maybe not parallel dimension right? They might be able to move to different universes and end them. So there's a few characters that end up in there. Cosmic, for me, is planetary. With a little bit of time, you could take out maybe a galaxy or small star system. But is somebody who could take out large planetary bodies with some effort. Nuclear is being strong enough to take out a large city with enough force, maybe taking out a small planetary body. But enough that, just some street level brawler wouldn't be an issue to you, because then we move to city. City is with some effort, you can take out a building, right? You can, with your powers, with your strength, you could take out a few walls. Notably, city's very much Spider-Verse Daredevil level, just to put that in perspective. And Greg. Greg is the undead Asgardian that Hela summons as a minion. For the sake of argument, we're calling Greg a human level situation. So for me, if I had a Monster Energy drink and Jason Voorhees machete, I could probably take on Greg, theoretically. So as far as Gambit's concerned, his ability to make things blow up and make them tear down is actually very useful. Also, the amount of energy that he puts into it can also make him alter and change larger items. So my assessment is that Gambit is at a nuclear standard. If he tried as hard as he could, or if he was in a last-ditch effort, there's a very possible situation that he could cause legitimately a nuclear explosion because of his intense potential for power. So he has the potential to make that potential energy become too much kinetic and blow a bunch of shit up. So there's a lot on Gambit. Gambit's been very popular since he came out. There's a lot I didn't touch on. Let me know what your favorite Gambit stuff is in the comics. If I got anything just straight up wrong, let me know in the comments below. As a reminder, I stream on Twitch on Sundays starting at 8 a.m. That's where I do new character reveals, typically as soon as I can, right after they're announced. So we do those. Also, we just kind of hang out, play some Marvel Strike Force. So be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Share it if you would. That would be amazing. Thank you so much for watching this, and I hope that you all stay cool.